A new large-scale investigation is being prepared against Donald Trump with accusations of global corruption. The Democrats are gathering a substantial body of evidence of Donald Trump's connections with major, gigantic, I would say, companies and how he manipulated the market for the benefit of certain companies. And against this backdrop, the U.S. Senate, by a vote of 50-49, confirmed Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal criminal defense attorney, as the permanent Attorney General of the United States of America. The vote took place after a months-long battle over the fate of the nearly $2 billion fund against Donald Trump's abuse of power. And almost immediately, it became known that the Democrats are preparing a large-scale campaign of investigations against Donald Trump himself and the companies associated with him, in case they win the majority in the House of Representatives in the midterm elections in November. And now some very interesting details have emerged, so as they say, make yourselves comfortable, we're starting. My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's analyze together the appointment of Todd Blanche as the U.S. Attorney General and this massive investigation by the Democrats regarding corruption ties. Donald Trump, and believe me, here, cases are about to surface that all reasonable experts warned Trump about, saying you can't do things like that because sooner or later it will come back to haunt you. But apparently Trump and his team were so confident that they would be in power almost forever that they got a little carried away. Here's a spoiler. Remember, how Donald Trump was promoting a Tesla car on the White House lawn? Well, now he's definitely going to get in trouble for that, and that's the smallest case in this whole story. But before we start this episode, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're closing in on 300,000 subscribers, so I'd appreciate every subscription. So, the United States of America has a new Attorney General today. It's Todd Blanche. The decisive vote came from Republican Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, who announced his support for Blanche at the very last moment. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was absent from the vote due to health reasons. But two Republican women, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, joined all the Democrats without exception and voted against the appointment. And right after the confirmation, the Senate went on summer recess and will not return to regular work until at least September 14. Even though they didn't manage to pass the Save America Act, which the Republicans tried to push through that same evening but failed. I'll say the main thing. The Senate still managed to vote on the harsh sanctions bill and sent it to the House of Representatives. So Senator Cassidy himself explained his position on Todd Blanche like this. I'll quote further. Mr. Blanche is not perfect and he'll tell you that himself, but the choice is not between the ideal and Mr. Blanche. According to him, it's important to have an Attorney General approved by the Senate, precisely because such a position supposedly gives more leverage to resist pressure from the president. Quote, I'm a realist and I understand that President Trump can be relentless on this issue, but that will be true regardless of who becomes Attorney General. Well, the reaction of the Democrats to such an appointment was extremely harsh. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wrote on social media that confirming Blanche permanently essentially gives the green light to pervasive, staggering corruption by Donald Trump. Next is his quote, if you want to root out corruption, you can't have the president's personal lawyer as Attorney General. You don't need a PhD in political science to understand that. Todd Blanche has no intention of stopping Trump's corruption. He built his career by enabling that corruption. Every senator who voted for his confirmation has now also branded themselves as an accomplice. Senator from California, Alex Padilla, added his own statement, also focused on the main conflict of interest. Quote, Todd Blanche was and always will be Trump's personal lawyer, not the lawyer of the American people. I voted against his confirmation. Moreover, former Speaker of the House, the legendary Nancy Pelosi, spoke out even more harshly. Here is her quote. Under the cover of darkness, Republicans confirmed Donald Trump's personal lawyer as Attorney General. Americans deserve a Department of Justice that protects the rule of law, not one that is turned into a weapon to protect the president, reward his allies, and cover up his corruption. Why does Nancy Pelosi say, under the cover of darkness? The thing is, they voted to appoint Todd Blanche at 4:30 in the morning local time. They voted and immediately closed, as they say, locked up the Senate and went on vacation. A separate and very specific complaint against Blanche concerns the Jeffrey Epstein case. The Democrats on the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform have already demanded that their own Republican chairman, James Comer, subpoena Todd Blanche to testify under oath about how Todd is overseeing the release of files in the Epstein case. The Democrats' statement reads as follows, quote, Todd Blanche is in charge of concealing the Epstein files. He is personally involved in the preferential treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell. He has publicly revealed the identities of Epstein's victims, and he continues to illegally withhold millions of documents. So they claim that all of this whole story with the publication of the Epstein files was just a cover-up, like he still hid the most interesting things anyway. And the Democrats suspect that anything related to Trump, Todd Blanche simply decided not to publish and just threw out to the public. Those are the documents he released and said, listen, this should be enough for you. In addition, Senator from Hawaii, Mazi Hirono, separately accused Blanche of giving false testimony under oath during the hearings. According to her, he claimed that he had canceled that very controversial $2 billion fund, but when she asked him to name the exact date of the cancellation, there was no answer. And the cancellation document itself turned out to be signed later than Todd Blanche claimed. I won't focus on this document here. I had a separate episode on this topic. To put it very briefly, Trump sued his own Treasury Department so that they wouldn't have access to his tax returns. In the end, he demanded $10 billion. They settled on $1.8 billion. Then they wanted to turn this into a supposed fund to help Trump supporters who were allegedly being targeted. Then they canceled this fund. Anyway, it's a whole saga. The saga continues. If you're interested, I recommend just looking into this issue separately because, well, I don't want to get stuck on it for too long here. Todd Blanche's own professional path to this position is also telling. He was Trump's personal criminal defense attorney, and then in March 2025, he was confirmed as Deputy Attorney General. In May, Trump unexpectedly appointed him as Acting Librarian of Congress. The decision, which Library of Congress staff challenged as illegal because, in their opinion, and therefore the lawful successor to the dismissed Carla Hayden should have been another official. Well, and Blanche became the acting attorney general in April of this year, after Trump fired Pam Bondi because of a dispute over, you know what? Epstein's files. How about that? After being confirmed for the position, Blanche himself wrote the following on social media. I am deeply moved by the trust President Trump has placed in me by entrusting me with leading the Department of Justice as the 88th Attorney General of our great country. May God bless America. But it seems that Donald Trump didn't just appoint his personal lawyer as Attorney General for no reason, because he might really need protection. And it's not just about the Epstein files. I would say it's definitely not about the Epstein files, although that story could catch up with him too. The Democrats are already preparing a response to this whole situation, and they're doing it in advance. The Democrats in the House of Representatives getting ready for a possible return to power in the midterm elections are developing a broad investigation strategy aimed at the companies and financial structures surrounding Donald Trump instead of immediately trying to impeach him. Senior Democrats and committee aides are already discussing the use of hearings, subpoenas, and document requests to obtain materials from these entities connected to the political and business orbit of President Trump. Simply put, they don't want to. In short, there is a good chance that the Democrats will actually take the majority in the House of Representatives in the November elections. And in order not to start right away with the topic of impeachment, they say it's necessary to gather a really strong body of evidence. Well, because Trump has already faced impeachment twice, and each time something didn't work out. And the logic behind this approach is very simple. According to the Democrats, investigating private companies and external financial players might turn out to be more effective than this direct confrontation with the White House, which, as they expect, will still resist oversight. And this is actually a very interesting story. The Democrats will start an investigation into quite specific companies such as Apple, Alphabet, Palantir, Blackstone, and BlackRock. Business entities tied to Elon Musk, including Tesla and so on and so forth, and all because of their contracts or interactions with the administration of Donald Trump. And the most harmless fact they mention, for example, Donald Trump advertising Tesla cars on the White House lawn. Remember, this happened in 2025. Back then, many experts warned, listen, this will come back to bite you. The President of the United States can't drive a Tesla onto the White House lawn and, as a politician, advertise this car. Well, they said it's a conflict of interest. It's so corrupt. Such a blatant scheme that it's just unbelievable, and you're doing it openly too, so even based on this fact alone, there are a lot of suspicions that Trump didn't do this for nothing, that he could have hypothetically been given some money under the table, as they say, and so on. And these are the most harmless examples. The specific area that the Democrats plan to investigate is the following: Department of Homeland Security contracts, funding, construction of the White House ballroom, who and how. By the way, the people planning to build it are friends of the American president. Corporate donations and possible quid pro quo schemes. For example, Trump could have provided a political favor and in return received certain dividends. Plus, the Democrats are also hinting that the statements of the American president need to be looked into. They say that very often, before he makes some major announcement, certain people come in and, for example, start selling or buying some stocks on the market. And as a result, they end up making a huge profit. And that's it. What's next? A separate investigation is being prepared into financial structures connected to Trump, including the venture capital firm 1789 Capital, where his son, Donald Trump Jr., is also involved. Letters with inquiries have already been sent to several organizations, in particular to the media company Paramount regarding a deal with Warner Brothers, to the video platform YouTube and its parent company Alphabet regarding their settlement with Trump for $24.5 million in September, the private prison operator Geo Group and the security firm Salus Worldwide Solution regarding contracts with the Department of Homeland Security, plus the commodity traders Vitol and Trafigura in connection with the sale of Venezuelan oil to the administration. This is another strange scheme, and it will also be investigated. And if the investigation reveals serious enough grounds, the Democrats do not rule out a new impeachment, but first they intend to gather rock-solid evidence. And these two stories are actually connected. The appointment of Todd Blanche as Attorney General and the Democrats' investigation are not two separate stories. It turns out that both processes are developing in parallel and fueling each other. The more the Democrats describe the Justice Department under Blanche as an agency covering up the president's corruption, the stronger their own argument becomes in favor of a parallel, independent oversight system separate from the Justice Department through Congress, if of course they get a majority in November. So this fall is going to be very, very interesting. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.